It's my pleasure. Thank you so much to Kris Hagel for coming. He is our Executive Director of Digital Learning and Communication. I did it. That's a success right there. But anyway, he's got a great presentation for us, and I'm going to learn right along with you. So thank you.
He is. Okay. So I'm going to talk for the first little bit about kind of how the world is a little different when it comes to digital technology these days and what our kids are exposed to. And then kind of the second half of the presentation, I'm going to go into some strategies and some things that you guys can take home and use in your house. So I'm just going to get started. I saw this analogy recently, and it kind of gelled with me as far as what is technology looking like these days. And so, we have BC or AD, but really we're talking about before COVID and after. Things have drastically changed as to how kids are using technology now after we come out of the pandemic. And so we're going to talk about some of those things that have changed. One of those things is, we're looking at some of the things in our lives that are just completely different now that we never thought were going to be a thing before. Zoom weddings or Zoom funerals. Unfortunately, I did go to one of those recently, and it's a whole different thing to watch a funeral on a website or on a computer. I know, having grandparents read to kids on devices. My wife and I talk to our niece and nephew every Sunday over a device that we never would have thought that that's a thing that we do now, but it is. And so those are just some of the things that are a little bit different than they were before the pandemic. Did you know that I think it's 86% of all informal learning now on the internet occurs on one of these two websites? I learned immense amounts from both of these. YouTube, fixing my house, things around the house, I'm constantly on YouTube. TikTok, I get into some really weird places on the internet that I didn't know existed. Like, did you know that there's a whole series of people that just talk about Microsoft Excel and what you can do in Microsoft Excel? Like, I somehow watched a video on TikTok, and then all of my TikTok videos were Microsoft Excel TikTok videos for like 2 days. It's just crazy. I still get a ton of recipes from TikTok also. So, but these are just different things. I was sitting, this is another story, I was sitting one morning complaining to my wife that I had this 19-page paper that I was supposed to read before a 9 o'clock meeting. And I was like, gosh, how am I going to get this done? I don't have time. And she was like, well, I just watched on TikTok that you can take a picture with your phone and convert the text into computer text, because I had a paper article. So I did that on all 19 pages, loaded it into a text editor, and then just did text-to-speech. And I live in Puyallup, and so as I drove out here for 35 minutes, that article just played over my car all the way to work. And by the time I got here, my 19-page article was done. So, yeah, it's just, we're living in a little bit of a different world that, we have been in the past. And so, the learning and the technology usage that we had during the pandemic, I've heard somebody equate to it as a tent in the woods in the middle of a storm. In the middle of a storm, a tent in the woods is great, but it's not where you want to stay forever. It's not where you want to live. Personally, probably want to live somewhere like this, a little bit better. But, it did what it needed to do during the pandemic, and so we moved through that. So we just have to make sure that we don't get comfortable here, right, and we actually move forward to what we really want it to be. But to do that, we kind of need to build the foundation of good digital citizenship and good digital healthy tool usage. So when we talk about effective digital learning, these are some of the things that we talk about as far as effective digital learning. Things like kids creating art and then putting a QR code on their art so that they can link you back to an article that they've written about what that art means to them. Kids learning to code and build little Lego robotics. Those are effective digital learning. One of the least interesting things you can do with technology is just have kids sit in front of a computer and consume content. Like, it's just not where we want kids to be these days. This graphic we had in our 2016 technology plan here in the district. Still as important today as it was 7 years ago now. What we really want to see is not passive use, but active use, where kids are creating, where kids are designing, where they're building. I can't even see what the other two were anymore. But yeah, so just sitting in front of a computer is not effective use of technology these days, and just consuming content. So we want to build that foundation. We're not doing enough right now to help kids become better digital humans, and so we need to start and work on some of that foundational skills, or in some cases go back, because most of you are middle school parents now, and these kids, many of them have, if not all of them, may have phones, and some of the things that we didn't know any better, so what we did, and so now we're having to go back and think about some of the skills that are necessary, for kids to use technology effectively and be effective citizens in the technological world. Sorry, I have notes in case, I just don't want to miss anything. So, another thing that is not going to be helpful moving forward and helping kids grow is to just pretend like the devices don't exist, or just to take the devices, for lack of a better term, bury them in the backyard and forget about them. Technology use is a complex skill, and I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. And kids need to learn it, and that's something we need to help them with, and just ignoring it or pretending it doesn't exist or taking it away from them is not ever going to help them as they grow older. And so, because really they don't know of a time where so much of this technology exists. They'll never know a time when you couldn't just pick up a remote in your house and have Ted Lasso show up and you can watch TV shows. They're not like a lot of us that had to go to a video store or order DVDs in the mail even. So kids have a whole different realization of what technology is. I heard somebody one time say, it's not technology if it was created before you were born. So people don't consider something to be technology, it's just a tool. And so kids, when they look at things like laptops or cell phones, they've just always been here. For us, we grew up and all of a sudden magically these things have come to us, but kids don't look at them the same way. And so another thing is, with technology, we don't do all the things that we've typically done, with raising kids. We don't help kids, we schedule regular health checkups, so we encourage them to put on sunscreen. We learn how to play on the playground with your friends, but those aren't skills that we translate into the digital world to help kids understand what's appropriate and what's effective. So it's some of the things that we need to do a better job at. Another thing is, throughout history, we have built communities around different things we're interested in. You have communities to help solve big problems, to join PTAs, to join church clubs. There's always been communities. And for a lot of us, those are all physical. For our students, that's not always the case. We also have places where people meet, places like parks, libraries. A lot of times people refer to places like parks and libraries as a third place. Your home, and then your school, and then the third place. And so for kids, a lot of times those third places look like this. It's social media that they're looking at. It's TikTok, it's Snapchat, I don't remember what my nephew told me the other day was the newest one that I didn't understand. And this is what I do for a living. Reddit, Amazon, even places like Amazon, there's people that just spend their entire lives writing reviews on products. And so it's interesting to see where people congregate these days that we always would think of in the physical world as a little bit different. So we have to realize that this is kind of what kids are growing up and growing into. We also, as they're congregating in these places, we've got to help them understand what it's like to be a citizen in these places, what it's like to get along, what it's like to have conversation, what it's like to treat people with respect. And so we have to help them. They don't naturally come with those skills. And so, it's tolerance, it's kindness, all of those kind of things that we need to help them learn in a digital environment. We have to show them what it looks like to be an effective digital citizen. We have to model appropriate conversations on social media. We have to model appropriate conversations digitally to help kids understand that. And kind of to do that, we have to start moving away from, I don't know why I have to click twice every time. Or more. There we go. Sorry. We have to start moving away a little bit from always just telling kids don't. We have to give them the do's as well. What are the appropriate things that you should be using your device for? What are the appropriate things you should be doing on the internet? Instead of just don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. As I talked about just briefly earlier, technology usage, effective digital technology usage is a complex skill. It's just like, if you were to put technology in front of a kid who's never had it before, he doesn't understand anything about it, or thinks they do. But complex skills are all over. Things like algebra. Algebra is a complex skill. You wouldn't just expect a kid to show up in 10th grade algebra class without all of the background information. Technology use needs to be developed the same way. I picked this picture because you can't just teach somebody to play a piano or play an organ by telling them all the wrong notes to hit. You'll never learn how to play the organ. So you have to talk about the positive things that they're doing right and the things that you should be doing to help that move forward. I borrowed a lot of this in this presentation from this book that I have listed on the last slide, but I'll share with you. It's called Digital for Good. It's by an author. His name is Richard Collada. He is the CEO of ISTE, which is the International Society on Technology and Education. This whole book talks in much greater depth than I'll ever have time to talk with all of you about. But one of the things that was in here was this sample acceptable use policy. This is kind of talking about how you can change the conversation from don't do this to what are the appropriate ways to do things. So like this could be used in a classroom with a teacher. When's the appropriate time to use your device? When the teacher asks you to, or during your own study time. During device breaks, put your device away. You can see all of these here. What should you do with your device? Who should you interact with? What happens when something goes wrong? And I think that's the big part that we need to address is, things are gonna go wrong, and we just need to be there to support kids when they do. And so I thought this was a really great way to reframe some of the conversations we've historically had about not doing things with technology. So that's why I titled this presentation Digital Wellbeing. There we go. Is because we need to kind of move the conversation a little bit from what we've always done, which is digital safety, worrying about all the bad things that are happening, and start framing it in a different lens, because that's how it's going to help our kids move forward. It's not like those things don't still exist. They're still out there. But we need to help look at it through a different lens, because this is the world that they live in, and we have to address that, and we have to deal with that. So that's why we're kind of changing this from, all of the negative connotations with technology to more of a, how are they going to be digital humans, digital well-being, and digitally healthy as they move forward. So these are, I mentioned ISTE a little bit ago. ISTE puts out what they call their standards on digital citizenship. So what is it, in their mind, what does it look like to be a digital citizen? The state of Washington pretty much has adopted these almost word for word. So they are actually our K-12 digital citizenship standards. But we talk about what do you want a kid to be or a student to be when they're growing up. Balanced digital citizens, make informed decisions on how to prioritize their time in virtual and physical spaces. Informed digital citizens that can look at different varieties of digital media and determine, is it true? Is it real? Is it something that we should believe? Inclusive, understanding and recognizing multiple viewpoints and engaging others online with respect and empathy. Some of the things that we talked about earlier. Using your technology for solving problems and being a force for good in the physical and virtual world. So, and then being aware of all the things that they're doing and what does that effect have on themselves and others. So those are kind of the big five that we get from the state as well. And I thought that was good for you guys to also understand that that's something we're working on here in all of our schools as well. Kind of like Zach. So to do this, we kind of need to change some of the narrative around using technology. So for years and years and years, we've heard screen time. Screen time is bad, screen time. All of the research done on screen time, unfortunately, is all done around television watching in the 80s and 90s. And so in 2016, they actually, let's see, who was it that started this? The American Academy of Pediatrics in 2016 revised their guidelines to take screen time out of their pediatric guidelines for kids. The U.S. Department of Education has also done this, and the World Health Organization recently did it as well, but they set limits on what they call sedentary screen time, so just the mindless consumption of content like we talked about earlier. That being the bad kind of screen time, if you still want to talk about screen time. I'm going to show you some examples here of different types of screen time. So I'm going to go up here, I think, and kind of point these out. So there's lots of different things a kid could be doing if they're on their phone. You know, they could be playing Angry Birds or Minecraft or reading a Kindle book. Ooh, touch the screen. Let me go back. Talking to friends, making a movie, learning another language. This app down here in the bottom I think is a really cool app. I signed up for it 2 years ago. I've never actually gotten to be a part of it, but it's called Be My Eyes. And what you do is you sign up for this app, and a person that has trouble seeing can also sign up for this app. And if they're in a store or they have like their medicine bottle in front of them and they can't read it, they can click on a button in this app and your camera will turn on, and or their camera will turn on. You'll be able to see what they're doing, and you can actually tell them what they're looking at in front of them, so you can be their eyes for them. So, yeah, it's a really cool opportunity. But you can see there's totally different types of value in this. You know, sitting and mindlessly playing Angry Birds is a whole different thing than learning. Is that French or Spanish? I think it's Spanish. You know, those are two different tasks. You know, they have totally different values. Making a movie, also completely different value. But it depends on the day. Depends on what else they need to be doing. So, you know, if they have a test due the next day, even learning a language is probably not the right thing to be spending their time on. So it's all about balance and knowing what's appropriate with the screen time that they have. Another big negative on screen time is, you know, we need to start thinking of it like we think of food. We don't give kids an hour to eat and just eat as much as you want. As whatever you want, you just have 59 minutes to do it. That's not ever going to work out. You need to have a balanced meal. You know, it doesn't work even if you just choose apples for an hour worth of apples is not a good way to eat either. So it's kind of, you need to use the same analogy when it comes to screen time. You need to balance it out and have a little bit more balanced diet in what your kids are doing on their devices. So, the next thing I want to talk about is how many of you have ever recommended a book for your children? Most of you, lots of you. How many of you have ever recommended a digital app? 2 or 3? Okay. If we want to get kids to have good balance, we have to help them choose what they're looking at as well. We have to be thoughtful and expand what they're looking at. I know that sounds hard. There are some places that will help you. I have links to these in the handout here, and Donna will happily help pass those out. Common Sense Media, if you don't know Common Sense Media, they do a wonderful job helping parents with a lot of these types of questions with examples and samples for you. They also have a whole section on reviewing apps for mobile devices. So you can go there if your kid says, hey, all my friends have whatever app. Can I have this app too? You know, you can go in and read what this is actually going to give the companies, what this is going to expose the kids to. Common Sense Media does a wonderful job. So does EdSurge. They have a product index that does the same thing. Common Sense also, if you don't know, does the same with movies, TVs, games, podcasts, all of those kind of things. So if you ever need that information. Common Sense Media is great for that as well. Another thing that is recommended in the book and I really liked was the idea of having kids evaluate the apps themselves. Having the conversation with your children about what does this app actually involve. So here's some questions, and I have them on the handout here in the little puzzle graphic. I simplified them there. But, you know, how does the app connect you to other people? Who are the people? You know, and are they people you know, or are they people you don't know? What kind of interactions are you going to have if you use this app? And I think a lot of the conversation could be if you were to be scaffolding up a kid as your child gets older. But with middle school kids, odds are pretty good they have a lot of these apps already on their phone. So it might be an idea to go back and sit with them and look at each of the apps and ask these 6 questions and say, you know, how does this app make money? Are they making money off of me by using the app? You know, it says it's free, but the company has to be making money somehow. So have your kids sit and think through some of these questions. How does the app handle their privacy? Is all of the stuff that they put in there no longer theirs anymore? Does it now belong to the company that built the app? What do third-party reviewers say about the app? You know, that's where you can utilize the Common Sense Media and the Ed Search to take a look at the apps that your kids have on their phones. Next thing that I would suggest, and we have one sample one linked on your handout, is device contracts. So this is a sample. The one that's linked you can edit. It's in Google Docs, so you can make it yours. You can make changes to it. But this is a sample parent device contract. You know, things like, when is it okay to use your devices at home? When is it not okay to use your devices? Who should you interact with, and what should you be doing? And then you and the kids work these out together. All of my nieces and nephews, is the one thing I can convince my sister-in-laws and brothers to do, is to actually do contracts with all their kids. So it helps. It can help have those conversations when they stray from where they should be to bring them back and bring them. Another thing I'm going to encourage you is to reframe some of the conversations that we've historically had around technology. Like I said earlier, the don't mentality, don't do this, don't do this, it just kind of shuts kids down, kind of some of the things that Jamie was talking about earlier. And so let's take a look at some of the conversations that we're having with kids and how we could maybe reframe them a little bit differently. So, the conversation, you're addicted to your phone. Are they really addicted to their phone, or are they addicted to their friends, or are they addicted to a certain app? It all depends on what they're doing on their phone. There's a book that I will show you at the end here. It's called The Social Lives, or It's Complicated, The Social Lives of Network Teens, that really talks a lot about this. And, in the 20, 30 years ago, we used to get together with our friends. Kids are addicted to their friends, and they want to talk to their friends, and that's what they really want to do. So, reframe the conversation. Like, here's some suggestions. Doesn't look like you've gotten a lot of exercise today, or I noticed you haven't spent any time with your family. Let's do that for a bit and see how we can balance out your day. So, some suggestions there. Stop sitting around on the computer all day. What were they doing on the computer? If your comment is stop sitting around on the computer all day and then go read a book, kids are going to be confused. They're like, well, now I'm just sitting somewhere else. Reframe that conversation as maybe, go outside, do something more productive, more physically active or more productive for your day. And you've been playing blank game too long. Here's some suggestions. Seems like this game is getting more of your attention than it deserves, given the fact that it's mostly based on luck. What other digital activities do you want to do to spend your time more productive today on your phone? Here's another one. Get off your phone. Spend more time with people. Most kids are spending time with people when they're on their phones. They're just doing it a little differently. So if what you're really asking is we want to spend more time with you, then say that. Don't say just get off your phone and spend time with people. Say, we need as a family to have family time, have those conversations. So it's a good reframing there. This one is This one drives me crazy every time I see the statistics. 3/4 of all teenagers sleep with their cell phones in their bedroom. It is
And are sleep deprived.
and are sleep deprived. And they're sleep deprived because they're being constantly bombarded with notifications on their cell phones. They're worried about, for the last 4 days we've had my niece and nephew at our house, and they're constantly, she's 13, she's constantly worried about what our friend's saying, and she will walk downstairs in the middle of the night because we won't let her have the phone next to her bed. And, she's just constantly worried about what's happening with everybody else. And so they're sleep deprived. Don't let your kids have their phones in their bedroom. Have them put it somewhere else. Buy a simple, dumb alarm clock. Just get the phones out of their bedrooms. Keep them. Allow them to charge in your bedroom at night. Allow them to charge in the kitchen. Do something else, but don't let them have them in their bedrooms. This one's tough, but it's a pretty good recommendation, I think. So much of the time, we take away the devices as punishment. And we really need to work to help kids understand that they need to set devices down as part of balancing their life, and not just using it as a punishment. We can't just have them think of when they don't have a device in their hand, they're in trouble. We need to get them the healthy understanding that you can have the device not in your hand and it be okay. So, think about how you use the taking away the device as just punishment for the kids. I understand it's frustrating. I've been dealing with a 13-year-old girl for 4 days on this. And I don't have kids of my own, so it's my niece and nephew that do this. And it's hard. I understand. And a lot of times, if they don't have the device, they're kind of complaining they're bored. But there's another book that's listed at the end here. It's a book called Bored and Brilliant by an author, Manoush Samarodi. It talks about how if kids don't experience boredom, they lose creativity, and they need to be bored. Boredom is an important thing for them to experience and important for them to have. And so if they constantly have a phone, a device in their hand, they're not experiencing, they don't have a chance for this because there's always something that's giving them that dopamine hit. That they're, here we go again, here's the next thing. So, not having that phone in their hand, not having that laptop in their hand is not a terrible thing. They just need to experience a little bit of boredom from time to time. Think about the idea of device-free dinners. A lot of families are starting to do this now where the entire family puts their phone down, and you spend time, if you can, if that's something that works out in your household, have the dinners without devices at all. That means the adults too. It's hard. I'm going to show a little video that I really like about this here. Common Sense Media hired Will Ferrell to do a video about this, to explain this to you. So, hopefully we have sound.
So, sweetie, tell me about your day.
Well, today, actually, I was driving to the grocery store, and I saw a dog.
Oh, you saw a dog?
Daddy, put your phone in the basket.
The basket's so crowded, though.
Just put it in.
Oh, wait.
Put it in the basket. In the basket.
Put it in the basket, right?
It's an easy thing. Just put it in the basket.
Please put it in the basket. Thanks. All right. Let's see what we think of this meal.
As long as it's in the basket, though, I can technically still touch it, right?
So, I like that one. Another idea. See if I can move forward. Another idea is to have the potential of, a day of the week where you stay off social media as a family. And we just say Sundays are our social media free days. There's a lot of families that are starting to do that now, and it is helpful and can help you. So, kind of to wrap up, and at the bottom of your slide here, or handout, I listed all of these. So some of the things that we've talked about. I didn't have a slide on this, but notifications. It would help everybody. It helps you as an adult. It would really help your kids. Learn to turn off your notifications on your device. I did it a couple years ago. It really is, it makes my life so much better. The things that you're getting constantly bombarded on are decided by the app developers. They decide what they want you to look at. Their whole life is to try and get you to do more in their app. And so taking control of notifications, turning off notifications can really help you with that. We talked about an alarm clock. Take the phones out of the bedrooms. It will help kids sleep. It will help them immensely. Take breaks. Breaks away from the kids. Come up with a parent agreement. Look at the apps on your devices. Kind of go over those with the kids. And really praise them when they're doing the things right. Like, reinforce the good things that are happening. It will help. I got two last things here. Anybody remember this little game from when you were in school? You know, match the objects that it looks like. If your kids were to do this today, where would they match their phone to? Yeah. Which one would they primarily do? It's just something to think about. Here are the three books that I kind of talked about today, and I will have all of these slides linked on the bottom address that's listed up in the top tomorrow sometime after we post the video, so you can get these. But Digital for Good is a great book, Bored and Brilliant, and then It's Complicated, The Social Lives of Network Teens. That one's 6 or 7 years old now, but still as important as it was back then. So that's it. Questions?